Hello and welcome. Welcome to my new sister podcast to Equine Voices called Let's Talk Heart and Soul. Now, this was supposed to go live at 3, but thank goodness I didn't do it as a schedule. So I apologise if anybody wanted to join, but you've not missed anything. Nichole got the wrong time, but so she put 11 on her calendar. So she's literally just joined me. So I came across this beautiful lady on a podcast called Next Level Soul with Alex Ferrari. And it was a beautiful podcast. He has some amazing guests from all walks of life. And I heard Nichole's podcast interview and I thought, wow, a very inspirational lady. But what struck me about her was she was so vibrant, is so vibrant, so full of life, beautiful smile. So without further ado, I'm going to bring her in and she can introduce herself. So her name's Nichole Clark. She's married to Nate. They've been married for 21 years. She's got 6 beautiful children, and one of them is called Ember, who passed away in August 2020. And it's through the experiences before then and after that changed her life dramatically from where she was heading to where she is now. So I hope you give her a warm welcome. And her story is very heartfelt. You might need some tissues, but she's funniest too. It's not a doom and gloom. So without further ado, I shall bring Nichole in. Hi, Nichole. Welcome to, I have to remember this is called Heart and Soul because I've got another podcast. This is the first one. And I'm so honored that you agreed to be my first guest on Heart and Soul podcast. So I've done a brief introduction. Would you like to just take your time? I know you've rushed to get here. Would you like to introduce yourself and just explain who you are and how you've got to this point in your life? And then we'll go a bit more into your story.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you. And I apologize to you and your audience for being late. I totally missed it on the time, but I'm glad it all worked out and we're here together. And it's an honor to be the first one on this beautiful podcast. I can tell already just from the title that you picked that it's going to be a beautiful, heartfelt, soul-filling thing. And I'm grateful and honored to be here. Um, as far as introductions go, I'm Nichole. I live in small town rural Ohio in the heart of the Bible Belt. And, when we moved here about 12 years ago, that was a perfect fit for my family. I was raised in the Mormon church or the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, and lived it and loved it for the first 38 years of my life. Absolutely. I'm grateful that I had that as a background. And then lots of trauma and unexpected death happened in my family. First, my dad died, and then you already mentioned my daughter. And that chain of events changed my entire life. It changed my perspective on life. It opened my heart wide open to be willing to look outside of my Mormon box and explore other belief systems and listen to other people's points of view. And it's really been a healing journey and a tragic journey all in one. And yeah, we have 6 children, and the oldest just turned 20, and it's been it's been a ride. I just can't even comprehend that I have a 20-year-old. Like, it doesn't make sense to my brain. But here we are, and it's almost Christmas, and that's what I got. I lost track time wrapping all the presents this morning, trying to keep it all under wrap. Well, that play on words, but anyway. Yeah, so that's who I am, and I guess I didn't really cover what I'm doing, but I guess we'll get to that later.
So, would you like to, if you don't mind sharing, you don't have to go into lots of details, but you share as much as you want, Nichole, about Ember and just a little bit of what happened there, because that's part of your story, isn't it?
Oh, it's a huge part of my story. It was my worst nightmare. I literally for years had this recurring dream, a nightmare, where one of my children would drown. It would be on my property. I would blame my husband because he's the one that wanted the pond and the pool, and I hated water. Like, I'm not like a water person, but he is like a fish. And I literally had this dream over and over, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night bawling my eyes out. And this was before Emberly was even conceived. So we had 5 children, and they're all 7 years, like in 7 years we had 5 children, which is a very Mormon thing to do. And he wanted a pond and a pool, and I did not want them at all. And then I said, okay, well, when our last child, our fifth child at that point, could swim across the county pool and back and, be safe, then I'd feel good enough to put a pool in our backyard or to do any water on our land. And we got to that point, and I finally let him and started building the pond and the pool and everything. And once it was done, I got pregnant again. And that was very unexpected for me, but also very wanted. I had wanted 6 children since I remember since I was like 11, like when I was conscious of like making those kind of choices. And that again is probably a big Mormon thing, but I really, really wanted a 6th child. And I tried for 8 years after my now youngest was born to get pregnant again. And I had an ectopic pregnancy and 2 miscarriages during that time. So I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, well, obviously God or whoever does not want me to have a 6th child. So I'm just going to give up on that. And as soon as I did, I started like going full force into like me. I had never had time for me since I had children. I'd been a stay-at-home mom for, at that point, geez, how long was it? About 6 years ago. I'd been a stay-at-home mom for about 15 years, let's just say. And for that whole time, I'd been pouring into my kids and my family and doing all the things for them, and then forgetting myself and putting myself on the back burner, and really had lost who I was. I had no idea who I was outside of being a mom. And I remember as soon as I had just been okay with the idea that I wasn't going to have another child, my youngest then was going to kindergarten. So I had the free time and started my entrepreneurship journey. I started reading and writing and doing writing books and doing e-commerce, and started doing things that filled my cup and got me excited about life again. And that's when, as soon as I signed up for all of these things, I was super excited and had a new focus in life, I got pregnant again. Of course, right? I was like, what? But I was like a mixed bag of feelings. Like, I was super happy and excited because I'd wanted this child for forever. And then I was like, oh no, what do I do with all this other stuff I've been finally being able to do? I'm going to have to start all over. And Emberly came to our life in December 6th of 2018, and instantly became like the love of all of our lives. All of my kids just instantly adored her. My husband and I were just so thrilled because we'd wanted another one forever, and this completed our family. Like, I don't know if anyone else has had that feeling where your whole family's sitting around the table and you're looking around and you just feel like somebody's missing. Like, we felt like that for years. Like, somebody's not here, but they're all here. It's so confusing. And then as Emberly joined us, it was like, okay, we're complete now. It finally felt like we're all together. And it was a beautiful thing. And then unfortunately, during her lifetime, the first year she was born, I left the religion. And so I was going through trauma in my body, and my whole my whole life. It was upheaved, and it felt really, really hard. And then COVID hit right after I left religion. Within like 6 months, COVID happened, and we were all homebound. I loved it because all of my children were home together. And I look back now and feel so grateful for that, because all of my kids got to spend quality time with their little sister before she passed, which was such a blessing. Otherwise, they would have been at school all day and it would have just been me and her, which I would have loved. But the other kids really needed that time with her as well. So that was a huge blessing. And then I kept having premonitions her whole life, which I really hated. Like, I really just did not want to have those feelings. And I've been kind of plagued and blessed at the same time with premonitions throughout my life. Like, I'd get a feeling or a gut knowing, an intuition of like, oh no. So I knew with her it was not going to be very long, and I hated that feeling. But it also allowed me to take so many photos and videos and just really enjoy every second I had with her, even when she was like having a tantrum or making a huge mess or coloring on our walls. Like, with my other children, I would get angry and yell and get upset. But with Emberly, it was like, oh, you're so cute. I just love it. Like, I was able to literally enjoy every moment with her. So I have zero regrets, which is a beautiful thing. And then she ended up drowning when I was gone, taking 2 of my children to a birthday party that was almost an hour away. I came home, and it was just a normal day. We had gone school shopping for the first time that morning, right? It was like a week before school was supposed to start. And we went shopping, and Emberly came to Walmart with us for the first time, and probably since she was like able to even see outside of her car seat. And she was just in like Disneyland. Like it was the cutest thing ever. She would look at all the other kids and be like, oh, like it was just the most adorable thing. And then she gave me this gift because at that point she was about 18. She was 18 months old. And so she hadn't really allowed me to cuddle with her for a few months. Like she was over that. She was ready for her independence. And at Walmart, we're walking around and she started getting really tired. And because I was like out of practice with bringing my kid to the grocery store, I had forgotten to bring her bottle or her blanket or anything comforting during that time. And I was like, oh no, we got to hurry. But she gave me this beautiful gift, Ronnie, of cuddling with me that day and falling asleep on my shoulder. And I look back now and I'm like, it's like she knew that I really needed that before she left. I'm gonna get all emotional.
It's okay.
But it was such a gift because I hadn't had that for months, and it's like my favorite thing as a as a human to like cuddle a baby. And it was just such a huge blessing because later on that day I was working on my laptop and I saw her run by and I was like, "Hey, come here!" And she was like, "Eh," and she ran to her sister, and I didn't know that that would be the last time I would see her. So having that memory of at least being able to hold her and snuggle her that day was a huge blessing. Um, because when I came home from dropping my kids off at the birthday party, I was driving up my driveway and I saw an ambulance coming toward me, and I instantly knew, oh crap, it really happened. Like this premonition I'd had for so long actually happened. I knew instantly I had to make a choice. I could let this, like in my nightmare, ruin my marriage, ruin my entire life, and become a victim, which was fine. It wasn't very exciting. Or I could choose to use this for the greater good and to find the good in it and to know that everything was working out for me. And that's a hard choice to make as a person who's literally suffering from the worst nightmare of their life. And that night, I was able to get in a helicopter ride with her. They were able to get her resuscitated and back to life. and and in that helicopter ride, I remember distinctly feeling like I had to let her go. I had to tell her, "It's okay. I know you're hanging on, but we're gonna be okay." Like, I had somehow been preparing for this for, like, 5 years before she was even born, and while it sucked and I didn't want to go through it, I somehow knew that it was supposed to happen, even though I tried everything to prevent it. So, yeah, that got us to the hospital, and during COVID, they don't really let families come in, but they gave us an exception because it was, like, literally the middle of the night by the time my family got up there. It was 2 hours away for them, and we all got to say our goodbyes there to her human body, and that was one of the hardest, well, the hardest night of my entire life for sure. But since then, a lot of miracles have happened, and soon after, I learned that I went to a psychic medium and learned that Emberly and I had created a soul contract to write a book together that would help expand the collective consciousness. And it took me several years to publish the book after we wrote it because it was, oh, how would you explain it? It was very difficult for me to share a lot of the messages that she gave me because they were controversial, or some people would consider them blasphemous from my old religion and things like that. So it was terrifying for me to share them. But since then, it's been a year now since we published, and I've received so many um, messages and letters and things from people knowing that we have helped so many people that it's made it all worth it. So there's my story in a nutshell.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, thank you, Nichole. I cannot imagine, and I hope I never do, what it'd be like to lose a child. I have a close friend. She lives in Texas, and she's also lost her son, and she's an amazing woman. She's just like you. She's full of beans, full of life. In fact, she's watching now. Her name's Martha, and her son comes to her regularly, and she gets great comfort from that. But it doesn't mean to say she doesn't miss the physical. And you
Yeah.
can be a spiritual being, but it doesn't mean to say you're immune from the emotion, because we're we're human and we're living this life and we feel the emotion.
100%.
And we're all conditioned. So I know you talked about the Mormon, and you was into the religion, and you had all that goes along with it. I don't know a huge amount, so you can talk as little as much as you want to. That's up to you. But we're all conditioned. When we're brought up by our parents, they condition us into their beliefs, and people around us, and what we see on the TV is all conditioning of some point. And I don't mean, somebody's conditioning program you. It's just life. That's how it works. Our mind is like a computer, and it absorbs so much information, but it's the only information it sees. The feel is from a different perspective and a different point of view. And if you can get both those working together in harmony, in sync, that's where magic happens. And sometimes some things happen in our lives that push us to that point. Now, I'm not saying that's happened to you, but it happens to lots of people. They'll lose a job, they'll lose their home, or they go through some epiphany, and their life changes. It's almost like that little voice comes through, that knowing, the soul, the God, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, and you are so bubbly. I mean, it doesn't mean to say that you don't feel the things, but you have put this tragic thing that happened to you, the circumstances, and losing your beautiful daughter, although and I know she's still here, very much so, that you have used that to do something good with your life and good in the world, and sharing that with others too, and giving comfort.
Yeah, and that's just my nature. I've always been a bubbly, hyper, happy person, and people have always been like I remember in high school, they were like, "Are you high on? Are you high?" I was like, "Yes, I'm high on life." Like always, like I've never done drugs or alcohol or any of that, but I've always just been able to see the bright side. And for years, like that was just how I functioned. And a lot of times I would do a lot of spiritual bypassing, or I'd be toxically positive, like always just only looking for the good. And Emberly has taught me that it's okay to feel all the feelings. In fact, that's one of the main benefits of coming here as a human, is that we get to experience the wholeness of all of the emotions. Because as humans, we want to resist the bad ones. We don't want to feel sad. We don't want to feel grief. We don't want to cry and hurt and feel suffering. And yet that's one of the allures of coming to Earth, Emberly has told me, is to feel those feelings and to allow them to be in our body, experienced through us. And that's what allows us to heal, when we allow ourselves to feel those feelings without judging them as bad or wrong or unnecessary. So I may come off bubbly and happy, because I am, and I definitely deeply feel sadness and grief and hurt. I hurt a lot. And just last week, 10 days ago, was her birthday, and the year anniversary of our book coming out. And I remember last year when we published the book on her birthday, it was my way of like rewriting her birthday, like saying like, we're going to make a day of celebration of her life by publishing her book, which I know will help a lot of people, and rewrite that day in history, as still a day of celebrating her life instead of being sad. And yet it was still like this conglomeration of like, I'm really excited and happy to put her book out there, and I'm so sad she's not here. Like even saying it, like I can say it happy and then feel the sadness at the same time. And even on her birthday this year, I was like depressed all day. I was like, we've sold so many books this year, and yet it's not enough. I want you here. I want to bake a cake for you. I want you to hold you. So you can hold, I just can hold all of that space in my body now. I've learned to feel my feelings, and I'm still a fun person. I still find gratitude and joy, and I try to be, choose happiness. I choose to see the good in everything, even when I can also allow myself to feel the bad in it. Because as a soul, everything's neutral. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. It just is. And when we can come to that place of neutrality with all of our feelings and allow them to be in our body and not make them make or break us, then it's just a deep feeling of inner peace and an inner knowing that we are whole and complete, and we don't need anything outside of us, anyone outside of us to complete us. I think that was a lot of weird stuff.
No, that was absolutely beautiful and well explained because so for me, my interpretation is when you're having when you're deeply into the human and that side and you're feeling all that emotional and you're like, for goodness sake, why am I feeling this? Because I know that what this does to me. And then you've got the other side saying, it's all right, just go with the flow. And it's like, but I don't want to go with the flow. And you're having this conversation, and it's like the mind and the soul, and it's da 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 da.
It's so
And then you come out and you can feel low for a while, and then something will happen and it's like, wow, I feel elated, I feel really happy, I feel, even though there's things going on, you can still feel those emotions. And as you've just mentioned, you're meant to observe in them and allowing them and surrendering to them is 3 big words, but we don't like to do. We like to push it back. We
yeah,
like to, like
and
you said, we don't want to feel that.
exactly, because the phrase that keeps coming to my mind is what you resist persists. If you resist those feelings, it's just going to keep coming and you're going to have a pattern, and it's going to just cause dis-ease in your body, and it's going to cause problems long term if you don't allow yourself to feel it, to heal it right now in the moment when it comes up. And oftentimes, our emotions, when we allow them to be felt, only last 90 seconds in our body, which is a very small, minimal amount of time. And yet we resist it for so long that sometimes that 90-second emotion can turn into like 90 days or not a few years, until it really builds up to the point where something horrible has to happen to wake us up and allow us to really make the changes. Unfortunately for me, I needed a lot of hard things to wake me up from my former self. And we all grow at our own pace and have our own journey, so I don't shame myself for needing those hard things. But also I wish I would have just been able to change and wake up without them. Because they weren't fun.
I like that expression, what you resist persists. And in law of attraction, it's what energy you're vibrating at, what you're sending out is the same energy you're attracting. So if it's that turmoil energy, you're going to create more of that because it's reflecting back to you and it's showing you, look, this is what you're creating. And as you said, it can go on for weeks, months, years, or 90 minutes.
Yep, we get to choose, and there's no wrong way to choose. We
Mhm.
get to choose if we're gonna suffer or if we're just going to let it be and choose to find what it's teaching us in the moment, and neither way is wrong, just one of them
Yeah.
feels a lot better.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. So when Emily first started to connect to you, um, so you went to see a medium and she explained. So when she started to connect to you, how did that happen? Did you, just for the benefit of the viewers and the listeners,
Mhm.
how did you sense that and trust in that as well? Because your mind would want to say, that's not real.
Mhm.
Explain what happened.
Yeah, that was a difficult part for me because I was like, "Okay, so I'm just supposed to channel my daughter?" Like, first of all, channeling was, like, um, not not allowed in our religion. Like, it was, like, woo woo and of the devil. Like, people would say, "You're not channeling your daughter, you're channeling the devil." And I had no idea how to do it. Like, I had been meditating for years at that point, and I had practiced a thing called automatic writing, which is a beautiful practice if anyone has tried it before, or if you haven't, you basically just write when you wake up in the morning. You can either write first or you can meditate first. I choose to meditate first most of the time. You just get in a state where you're still in, I can't remember what brainwave. It's like alpha, theta, delta, delta, delta. I get them all mixed up, but it's the brainwave where you're most susceptible to being in tune with your subconscious and your higher self, or whatever you want to call it. So I would wake up, meditate, and then get on my laptop, because I knew that if we were going to write a book, I couldn't just do it in my head. Because normally I would communicate with her in my head and just think and receive answers. But I knew I had to record them. So I'd get on my laptop and I would just start typing questions. And then I would just close my eyes and type blindly and allow all of her answers to flow through me. And I literally could feel her fingers or something taking over my fingers, and just like a steady stream of consciousness coming through me through the screen. And sometimes I would read it back, and other times I wouldn't. Like, it just didn't need to. But after about 4 or 5 months, we had over 200,000 words written together. It was kind of insane. It was a beautiful process of learning to trust and just allow and receive rather than trying to force anything from happening. And most of the time, it just flowed through me, and I didn't have to even think about it. I never went in there with like preconceived questions or answers or anything in my head. I just went in with just open heart and said, this morning I woke up and I had a dream about this, or today I woke up and I had questions about this. Like, it was literally just like being so present in that moment every single day and just allowing myself to receive her answers. And the cool thing is that this is something that's capable, anyone is capable of doing. I'm not special. We all are special, but we're also like all capable of doing the same exact thing that I did. Anyone can do automatic writing, tap into their higher self. The hardest part for me was literally just like believing it. Like you said, like, how did I get over those doubts of like, am I really making this up? Because so many people would say, you're just making it up to make yourself feel better. And then I'd say, even if I am, which I never consciously thought I was, right? Even if I am, if it's making me feel better and bringing me peace, and also the words are helping other people, then why would you discount that or make fun of it or criticize it? Like, in the scriptures, they always say, by their fruits you shall know them. If the fruits of what she's telling me are helping save lives, which they have, are getting people out of depression or pain or suffering, then I keep sharing it. And, people who are by it or feel offensive, I guess, would be the people who were like I used to be, still in the religious box, still not willing to listen to anything outside of their own belief system. And that's okay. I don't judge them or blame them in any way, shape, or form, because I understand them. And I think that's why it made it so hard for me to share it, was because I had this huge limiting belief of like, if I share that, then I could lead others to hell. I could lead them astray. And I never, ever wanted to do that. I never want to hurt anybody. But and then I believed, then I talked it over with Ember. She would be like, you can't lead anyone astray. Like, they get to choose what they believe. They get to choose if they listen to you or not. They get to choose if they accept the message or not. It's just your job to be the receptacle of what I give you and to share it and not worry about how it's received or perceived by any other person. If it makes you feel good, then do it. If it doesn't, then lean into it and allow yourself to also feel discomfort every once in a while, because we humans like to stay in our comfort zone. And a lot of the things that she would say, I'm like, I have to stop and process this for a while, because it's not feeling good in my body right now, because it's really different from everything else I've been taught my whole life. And I know a lot of readers have that same struggle. They're like, this is really pushing the boundaries for me. This is pushing me past my comfort zone. And it's not a comfortable feeling sometimes, a lot of the things that she teaches. And yet, when you allow yourself to just be open and to also choose which parts you receive and which parts you don't need right now, then it all works for your good.
That was a beautiful explanation. Are you okay? So I do communication. I think I've mentioned that to you. And I do animal communication, but I also connect to people too. And it's a similar thing. I don't have expectations, and it might just be a feel that flows through, and a knowing if something's coming. It might be a few words, a feel, a sense, and then the rest flows. And it's a little bit like fine tuning a radio station, and you can just hear something and you're not quite sure, so you're tuning it in a little bit more, and then you get the conversation or you get the music coming through. And that's how I describe when you're connecting. And I've been doing it so long now that I know I in my day-to-day stuff, I do meditations, but to me, I'm open, and if somebody wants to get through, it's there, and I always trust
Mm,
that it's for the best. So me saying that is my affirmation, my that's what I believe.
yeah.
And quite often I get messages when I'm driving because that's a less distractions for me. So
Yeah,
they
yeah.
find it easier to get through. And but I'm always amazed when I pass a message on, and I always say, you know, this is my interpretation. If you doesn't mean anything, doesn't resonate, then don't worry about it. Sorry for disturbing you. But it might do later. Just remember it. It may come through later, or maybe half the conversation does, and the rest is for later.
Yeah.
And once you pass the message on, that's fine. And you always do it with the intention it's given, and from the heart, no judgment. And that's all it is. So it's coming from the heart. It's coming with that heart vibration, and it will go to that heart vibration. And you
Mhm.
don't have to have anything. Um, you don't have to necessarily like the person. I mean, I do. I'm lucky. Most of the message I go to, I like the people, but you don't have to. You don't have to have anything in common, because on a soul level, on a heart level, that person will feel something. And even if it doesn't resonate at that moment, there is a connection to the heart from the heart. And that heart knows. And when the person is ready, it will open and flourish. And that's just coming through now. So that's me communicating now.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's it's such a beautiful thing to do. And as you mentioned, we are all capable of doing this. But not everybody believes that's what it is. They might think it's their imagination. If you're not going to hurt anybody, and even if it is, as you mentioned, what does it matter if that opens or makes somebody feel better? Who has the right to say otherwise?
Yeah.
That's their issue, not yours. So we'll just park
Exactly.
that. We'll park that one there. Um, so we've got a few people that have stopped on by, which is lovely. So this is going to a few different platforms, but because it's a new podcast, um, I'm just tweaking it to find out how we're going and where it's actually going. So Martha, she has a page called Entwined Souls, and so I'm just going to pop her. You can see these messages too, can't you? I think
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, they come up on
So
this. That's cool.
yeah. So this is Martha, and she won't mind me saying, because she has a public Facebook page too, and that's what this is. And she shares her story and her connection. And Cody often comes through, and he comes through when we're talking, and it's so funny. He'll give me or other people visuals so we can give to her. Um,
Uh,
but yeah, she's another beautiful soul. Yeah, absolutely. And she talks about, pain is inevitable, suffering is not.
yes.
That's her
Yes.
words.
That is a beautiful thing, because it's hard to recognize, as a human, we have the responsibility or the ability to choose how we perceive any situation. And when we change our perspective, we change our whole world. So many of us say we want to heal the world or we want world peace, but we don't have peace within because we're judging or we're resisting or we're choosing suffering. And instead of tapping into that and saying, okay, well, what's this here to teach me? What's this here for? And when we allow ourselves to really go there and feel the feelings instead of resisting them, then the suffering ends. We're allowed to just heal it, and then it doesn't have to even come back. If we keep having patterns repeat in our lives, that's like a red flag, like, hey, this is a pattern you have to heal, so pay attention here. And then, especially if they're causing you a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, if you just tap into those and say, okay, what is this pattern teaching me? Maybe it's a pattern of a kind of relationship that you attract into your life that makes you feel less than, makes you feel invisible or not good enough. As soon as you recognize the pattern, then you can start to heal it. And once you heal it, you don't have to attract those kind of people into your life anymore. And it's a beautiful thing because the suffering ends. And that doesn't mean that you don't feel your feelings. Like I was just saying a couple weeks ago, I was crying a lot, and I still cry, talking about Ember. I still feel the feelings for sure, but they don't cause me so much pain that I'm, stuck in bed anymore. There were times when I was, not gonna lie. It's a roller coaster of emotions, but those days where I'm sad or lonely or feeling depressed or whatever because of it, they don't last long. They just come and go, and I don't beat myself up or feel shame because of them anymore. I allow them to just come and flow and move through me, and the suffering isn't there, which is a beautiful thing.
I'm so pleased that you mentioned that, and I'm just going to refer back to my Equine Voices podcast. That's very much on a similar basis that this will be, but it's based around horses and how horses and animals interact and how they guide us and show us. And a big thing, in fact, an interview I did a few days ago with a lovely guy called Tom Mays. He works with animals, with horses and people, and it's when you go see an animal, often what's in their body physically is a reflection of what's going on with the person. In fact, 90% of the time, if we can deal with our issues, and it's not just our physical, but our emotional, our baggage that we carry, because that comes out in our bodies as illness, as you mentioned, but it reflects in the animals that we're with. And if we're deeply connected, they really absorb that. They're all
Wow.
different, but animals absorb that. So, and horses especially. So if you've got a horse with a bad back, you might have a human with a bad back, but it's not the bad back that's the issue. It's what is that in their body that's causing that blockage. It will be emotions. It will be old trauma. It will be from way back, maybe even before there. Well, in fact, it does come from there sometimes, but that's another story. It's very, very deep. And the more we grasp, which is why I want to do this podcast, because the message is the same. The more we deal with our issues, with our emotions, with being present and allowing the experiences to flow through us so we don't store them, the better the world will be, the better our animals will be, the better our friends will be. Because as you said, you cannot change the world. You can put a plaster on it and make it look and feel a little bit better, but you're not changing the root core. The only way you can do that is through yourself. Now, multiple people can do that. So if you have, obviously there's lots of things going in the world now, like war and starvation and things. There is no need, and there should not be, these circumstances. This has been created by the humans, by the population over times, billions of times, millions of times. We can change that, and we can do that as a community. But if we come at it with a negative and deep vibration that is painful, all we're doing is creating more of that. If we come at that, as you said, and don't judge it, you have an opinion, yes, because your mind's given that opinion, and you'd be a robot if you didn't feel. But if you understand how deeply the vibration of what you feel affects what you see and what comes back and what flows, that is the change. That is the only thing that you can change within yourself. But it's a butterfly effect, because that ripple that's in you will affect everything. Whether you see it or not, it will affect it. A butterfly can flap its wings and it will have effect on the air surrounding it. Now, you might not feel it, but you know there's been movement, and in some area that will be felt. So I'm really pleased that you said that. There's lots of overlaps. There's going to be lots of overlaps with this podcast and my Equine Voices podcast too. But the story and the information that comes through is exactly the same. You've got to start with yourself.
Yeah,
That's where
because
it
when you
starts.
do heal yourself, you heal the way you see the world, and the world becomes more peaceful. And every single person, the more of us that are waking up and doing the inner work and healing that within us, the more, like you said, it is rippling out and helping the greater good and expanding the collective consciousness, which is my entire intention with my book and everything else I'm sharing, is to help other people awaken to remember who they are, to remember their innate worth, their innate wholeness, and to return to peace, to return to that feeling of neutrality and not not so much focused on the suffering or the pain. I'm
Mm.
really curious because you said there's overlap. When you heal an animal or you work with an animal, does it help the person that's involved with that animal, or do you do the person to help heal the animal?
So I don't say that I heal, because we heal ourselves. So you
Right.
facilitate, you facilitate an energy exchange, and it's the energy that's doing the work. So for me, um, if I go to see a client and the horse, I connect with both, because it's a three-way conversation. And the horse, when I connect to them, quite often I'm having a conversation, because I'm known as animal communicator, but that animal communicator is scratching the surface, because it goes deeper than that. The communication is the verbal, but it's also the non-verbal. It's also the exchange of energy. It's
Yeah.
also the connection. Um, so if I'm talking with a client and their horse, I quite often, I'm a very tactile person. I love hugging and I love touching. So that's me. So we'd get on fine. I'll be stroking the horse if the horse wants that. Sometimes they don't want that, and that's fine. You can still do that from a distance. And I often have online clients too with a similar. But I do like to see my clients. I can be talking to my client, and then I'll be stroking the horse, and I'm very much aware that my hand is stopping somewhere, or my attention
Mhm.
goes there, and I will say to the client, okay, I just need to pay the horse attention now, because what can happen is the horse just wants you to connect with them, not to speak, but just be there, so they can do what they need to do for themselves, but also to connect on a deep level with their human.
Mm.
So I explain that if I go quiet, that I'm just, I'm just connecting, and you will see the horse relax, and you'll see them. Sometimes they can chew, uh, sometimes they go off to sleep, or they'll walk away. That they're in that moment, and that moment of quietness and stillness. It's almost like the calm before a storm. It's so beautiful, and I'll sort of look at the client and I'll say, "I'm sorry, this might look a bit boring," and they'll go, "No, no, I can see there's something going on," or "I feel emotional. I don't know why, but I want to cry," and I'll go, "That's fine, that's fine." So that's how the connection works. I don't go there with an intention, and I don't have to do anything. I just have to facilitate the energy exchange.
Mm.
Um, I was having a conversation with this gentleman that I just mentioned, Tom, and my human part often feels what's going on in anatomy, and even though I know a bit of the anatomy, because I don't do it all the time in that way, massage and things, I forget what it's called. So I have to show the client on my body, your horse is restricted here. There's there's inflammation here. I can give them that, but I want to go to the core, and I want to know. I want to go deeper. And sometimes, as Tom said, you just have to allow, because that part gets in the way. That wasn't his words, but somebody else told me that. As soon as you let the anatomical mind have its view, it's almost like you're stopping it, because it can't comprehend what's going on.
Mm.
It's no sense to the mind, so it puts it into the nearest category that it can find to explain it. And sometimes it's way, way off. Way, way off.
I love that. It's so similar to the channeling process where you're receiving information, but if your mind starts trying to overthink it or think about and force something, then it doesn't flow anymore and you can get way off. So it's really cool how similar those things are.
Well, to me, it's all flow. It comes from the same. It's just a different vocabulary or different genre. It comes from the same source, and I trust that, and I know that, so I don't ever question that. Um, I question me afterwards.
Yeah.
Did I really get that? But I don't question when I'm in it, because I've done it enough now that I know, and it's there. Um, in the past, I used to feel a little bit like imposter syndrome. I'm sure you did a little bit.
Mhm.
Thinking, why am I doing this? What right have I got to say that I can do this? I haven't got a qualification. Is there a qualification? So I had that, these little little voices from myself. I don't have that anymore. But I would question, or I would get information and go home, and I would really give myself a hard time and question it and want proof. So as a human, we want to see visual and we'd like to have proof. Now, the animals happily oblige. They give that. I don't ask for it. They give that. They'll give me information that's proof for the owner. I would sometimes think, why do I get it like that, communicator? Why do I don't do this anymore, but I used to think, well, why can't I get it like that? And it's because I'm not them, I'm me, and this is how it is. And as time's gone by and I developed, and this has come from the communication, both podcasts, I understand why I communicate the way I do. There is a role for everybody on this planet. If all they have to do is say, okay, I'd like to know what it is, I'd like to do it, and be open and willing, and then the universe will guide them to where they're meant to go. You can't ever compare, and you can't try to be somebody else, and you can't try to be somebody else's format, because you're doing somebody else's work, not yours. And that's a great lesson that I've learned. And I'm still learning, and I will forever be learning, even when I go home to the, wherever that is, turn to Stardust. I will still be learning there. I don't believe that you're learning here, you go there, and it's like, I know everything. I think it's learning whatever form you're in, energy, whatever. You are still learning. Otherwise, why would we come back here?
Yeah, I think learning on a soul level is what keeps us going. It's fun. We like doing that. I like learning as a human as well. And I love that you said, don't compare your journey or your talent or your message or whatever way you present yourself to other people, because with channeling, there's so many different ways. People are clairaudient, or they hear messages, and sometimes I get that. But clairvoyant is something that I wish I could see, like, like some people see visions, or they see spirits or whatever, and they can tell you what they're wearing, and I don't have that at all. And I've envied that, and I'm like, oh man, why can't I receive it like that? But then I have this gift of clairsentience, where it's just, I feel it. Like, I know when I'm in that flow, I know when I'm receiving, and it's a beautiful thing. Like, and just embracing each of our own unique individual, ways of receiving, ways of being. Because when we get caught up in like comparing ourselves rather than just being who we are, we dim our light, and and other people might suffer because we aren't sharing who we are, who we came here to be. I remember in my first book, I talk a lot about the comparison trap, and talking about, you know, a piece of music, say like a song that you love, can be sung by so many different singers, and not everybody in the world is going to vote for just the one singer or the one song, right? We've got so much variety of food, like hamburger places or pizza, and every single one of us likes something different. Even within the same pizza joint, we choose a different kind of pizza. Each of us has our own unique preferences and opinions about people and things that we hear. And so if you're not the one, if you're saying to yourself, somebody already wrote a book like that, or somebody already shared a story that's similar to mine, don't discount your own talent, your own story, your own way of delivering it, because somebody out there will prefer your way and hear your way more than they would from somebody else. And each of us is so needed for the wholeness. It's like each of us is like a puzzle piece to this whole planet. And when you take one puzzle piece away from a puzzle, it's annoying. you want it to be whole, you want it to be complete, and that's each of us as souls complete the wholeness. So every single one of us is valid and necessary and needed for the wholeness.
Oh, that was so beautiful, Nichole. Thank you. You have a way with words. If you'd like to share, it's up to you. If you'd like to share any message that Ember has brought through that's had a big impact on not only you, but people around you, the people you shared it with, would you mind sharing one?
Oh, there's so many. It's hard to choose. Honestly, for me, one of my biggest struggles in this lifetime has been my body. It's been chronic pain. It's been judging my body as not good enough, or like comparing it to other people, comparing my size or my health. And that has been a really big struggle. And we talk, like, if people haven't seen the book, I'll just show it right here. Remember All That Is: Conversations with My Daughter After She Died. But anyway, like in the back, there's a whole topical guide where you can look up topics, right? And if you look under pain, I can't even tell you how many there are. Let's see. Well, maybe it's not in this one. This is like an old version. I'm pretty sure in the new version you can look up pain or chronic suffering or whatever. And I had to have asked her about that like at least 10 different times. And that's the cool thing. Like, this book is written so it's like every day is a different conversation. It doesn't go in chronicle order. You don't have to read it like from beginning to end to get something out of it. You can just open it to any part of it and share something or get something from that day. And I thought I would just do that for you guys today. I just opened to this. I have no idea what it says, but one of the recurring messages that she always gives me is, tuning into your body and allowing it to teach you the lessons that it's giving you or whatever. Let's see. I have no idea what I just opened to, but okay. Let's see. Even if it is my fault, could I forgive myself? I feel like that question is so very crucial to one's healing. And that, as a mother who has lost a child, is a question that almost every single parent says they feel guilty or they feel shame. What if it was my fault? Like, what could I have done better? What should I have done? Right? We should on ourselves all the time. I should have done this. I should have done that. And instead of like diving in and saying, I did the best I could with what I knew and what I had. Right? So she says, self-forgiveness is the most important gift and true display of unconditional love that anyone can give themselves. Learning that no matter how poorly you have behaved or mistakes you have made, you are still worthy and lovable is life-changing for many people. I wish we could help every human feel that kind of love and forgiveness. It would be a major game changer on a global scale. So I think that's a pretty profound message, that so many of us are holding on to pain from guilt or shame of something that we have done in our past. We suffer because we haven't healed by giving ourselves forgiveness, by giving ourselves the gift of allowing ourselves to recognize that we have done the best that we could with the knowledge that we had, with the person that we were, with the experiences that we had that brought us to that experience, and to give yourself credit and say, you know what? Yeah, maybe right now in hindsight, you would do better, but you can't go back. All you can do is accept what happened in the past, know that it happened for a reason and it happened for you. And you can heal it by loving yourself where you are and forgiving yourself. So I think that's the message she really wanted to share today.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful and much needed. And guilt is, is one of those damaging things that we do to ourselves, and regrets as well. Sometimes regrets. Wow, that was so beautiful. Oh dear. I had something.
I become speechless when I share her message. I'm like, what do I say to that?
No, it's just, I was thinking as you were talking, and I remember, and I know the answer, but when you're in that, oh God, why can I not just press a button and it all goes? Can I not just get rid of it all at once? And I know the answer. You can't do that, because for one, your body would go into shock, because when you release trauma, your body has to react
The nervous
with that.
system cannot handle that.
You would just not be here anymore. It would not cope with it. And through the learning to understand, to allow, to see, to love, and just to accept what comes through and let it flow through. For me, it's allowing it to pass through. So all these experiences come along, they hit us, we can either keep them in or we can allow them to pass through. And just as I said that, I had a vision of the movie, is it Ghost, with Patrick Swayze, where she walked through him and he went, oh, and he felt her. And it's just like that. Allow that to flow through you. Somebody's laughing at me now because they're saying, yeah, that's the movie. Yeah, and it's allowing it to flow through you, because it's when we hold it into our body that is when we cause damage, when we get ill, when we have all these problems, and we attract more of that vibration. That's what we're attracting, more of that. And it's not always our stuff too, and that's another reason why we have to understand that things happen and we can punish ourselves, but it's not going to change anything. Yeah, that was beautiful.
Oh.
Okay, so Nichole, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the viewers and listeners? Maybe some tips or something that you would, something easy so they could go away and practice that themselves. Because you know the word meditation, as soon as you say the word meditation, it's like, oh, here we go. But meditation can be ironing and just drifting off and thinking. It can be listening to a piece of music. For me, it's when I'm poo picking, I'm meditating, or when I'm driving, or maybe not quite when I'm driving.
Yeah, and that means so much for different people. Like, it's the same thing as God, you know, like you say the word God and it's everyone has their own version of what that means. And meditation can literally just be like living a life of mindfulness and being present in the moment. You don't have to be closing your eyes in some, you know, with your hands like this or in a pose of like a Buddhist monk or anything. That's not necessary. But one of the most powerful lessons that Emberly has taught me, and what made it easier for me during the grieving process to be able to connect with her easier, was to focus on my fun, to focus on the things that light me up, that make me feel good, that make me excited to be alive, to be human. Because so many of us are so focused on the past or the future, we're not here in this present gift. And so many of us are focusing even in this present moment on like all the things we have to do, right? And when you can change your message, your just that little word, I have to get this done, to I get to get this done. And you get to choose what you're getting done. You get to choose how you're spending your time every single day. And so many of us say, we have to, we have to, have to. But well, why? Why do you have to? Who's making you? You're making yourself do the things because you want a certain result. But the result that you're seeking most is to feel good, is to feel safe, to feel happy. And when you focus on that first, when you prioritize your own well-being, your own happiness, the things that bring you peace and joy, then you don't need all the other things to help you feel that way. You already have that feeling, if that makes sense. So many of us are taught to think backwards. Like we're taught to like do in order to get this. But if we we're a human being, and we be in this moment and focus on what can I do right now, right here, to feel joy, to feel peace, to feel love, to feel the feeling that I want when I think that I'll get it by doing something else. Focus on having that feeling right now, because you can conjure up a memory. You can use your imagination, which was one of the most powerful gifts that any of us have, and really tap into this now moment. I had a beautiful moment of a meditation a few months ago that literally changed the way I see oneness, or now, right? Because we are all one. And if we're all one, I asked, what does one mean? And the acronym for one would be only now exists. And if you think of only now exists, I said, okay, well, what does now mean? Now is noticing our wholeness. And I loved that, because when you tap into right now, now is all that exists. And right now, I am noticing my wholeness. I am noticing that I don't need anything else. I have enough air to breathe. I have water right here. I have my body that I'm in, and I'm tuning into that right now. Then it is a gift. This present moment becomes a gift. And you can do that the next second, and the next second, and the next second, until pretty soon your whole day becomes a gift. And every day becomes a joy to live rather than a burden to bear or something that you have to endure to the end. So that
Wow,
was
Nichole, that is beautiful, and a perfect words to end on. Thank you so much for sharing a little of your story. You are such a beautiful soul. And when he was talking about body image, I just see, I just feel your energy and this beautiful smile and this beautiful heart that is just so big. And yes, there is moments in there, as you've mentioned. It's not all rainbows and sunglasses, but you make the best of what you have, and you can either be one way or another, and the choices are always ours. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being my first guest on my new podcast. And I hope that I would love you to come back at your leisure and your time and have another chat in the future, if you would. Yeah.
Sure, this has been lovely. I love talking with like-minded souls who, um, just feel good to talk to. You feel good to talk to.
Oh, thank you, thank
Full
you.
pleasure.
I'll just so Julie says amazing advice, and Martha wants to get your book. So there's a few people.
Thank you.
So, what I'll do is I'll pop you out. If you'd like to say bye and just wait a minute, and then I'll say bye in person. So just say bye to the listeners.
Goodbye, thank you for listening, and thanks for having me, Ronnie.
Oh, you are welcome. You're welcome. What amazing lazy. Well, I knew that anyway, but I wanted my listeners and viewers to see that again. So if you're interested in reading a book or a story, there is a link that's attached to this, and I'll make sure it's posted again. And you can do a little bit of research on Emberly and Nichole's story. It's beautiful. She went into more details in other areas with Alex. So I've also put the link to Alex's podcast, so you can hear that. There'll be more details. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did, and the lovely Nichole. Have a wonderful Christmas, and I will speak to you soon in the new year. But for now, take care, and bye for now.